کے اندر جو شہادتوں کا سلسلہ ہے وہ 1300 سے زائد اب ہو چکا ہوا ہے، اور یہ پرائمرلی سویلین شہادتیں ہیں، اس میں عورتیں اور بچے بھی شامل ہیں۔ یہ بالکل بھی سرپرائزنگ نہیں ہونی چاہیے کسی کے لیے بھی، کیونکہ ڈکلیئرڈ گولز میں سے امریکن ہیجمنی کی یہ واضح ہیں۔ جیسے آپ نے پیٹ ہیگزیت کی تقریر دیکھی ہوگی، جہاں اس نے واضح الفاظ میں کہا ہے کہ ہم نے ایریل سپیریورٹی گین کر کے ڈیتھ اینڈ ڈسٹرکشن ان کے اوپر رین ڈاؤن کرنا ہے۔ اسی طرح اگر آپ دہیہ ڈاکٹرن کو دیکھیں، اسرائیل کی جو دہیہ نیبرہڈ کے نام پہ لیبنان کے، کہ جیسی وہ ایئر سپیریورٹی گین کر لیں ایک ایریا کے اندر، ان دیٹ کے لوکل ایئر ڈیفنسز گر جائیں، تو وہ سویلین انفراسٹرکچر کو ہی ٹارگٹ کرتے ہیں۔ اور یہ تمام کے تمام اصول جو ہیں یہ شروع ہوتے ہیں ورلڈ وار 2 کی برٹش بامبنگ سے، جو برطانوی تاج نے کیری آؤٹ کی تھی جرمنی کے اندر، خصوصاً ڈریسڈن کے اندر، جہاں انہوں نے پورے ایک جرمن شہر کو فائر بام کر دیا تھا۔ اس کا یہ مطلب نہیں ہے کہ نازیز کو یا جرمن جو ہیں وہ پاک پوتر لوگ تھے، نہ اس کا یہ مطلب ہے کہ ہیروشیما ناگاساکی جن کے اوپر گرایا جا رہا تھا کہ وہ کوئی پاک پوتر لوگ ہیں۔ بتانے کا مقصد یہ ہے کہ جو ہمارے فاتحین ہیں، معزز فاتحین، جنہوں نے ہمارے لیے کچھ اصول طے کر دیے یو این اور ورلڈ آرڈر کے تحت، جن کی ہمیں اطاعت کرنی چاہیے، یا آپ نے سبق یہ سنے ہوں گے یقیناً سارے کے سارے، یہ کوئی معزز فاتحین نہیں ہے، یہ ظالم جابر قاتل میری ذاتی آجزانہ رائے کے اندر اپنے مخالفین سے زیادہ بڑھ کے تھے، اسی لیے یہ کامیاب ہوئے ان جنگوں کے اندر۔ امریکہ یا مغربی تہذیب کی حقیقت یہ ہے کہ انہوں نے کلنگ مشین جو ہے اپنی انڈسٹریل کلنگ مشین، اس کو پرفیکٹ کیا ہے لائک نو ادر۔ نہ نازی جرمنی ان کے مقابلے میں آ سکا، نہ سوویت یونین، نہ امپیریل جاپان، نہ امپیریل عثمانی سلطنت۔ یہ قتل کرنے کے ماہرین ہیں، اور انڈسٹریل سکیل پہ قتل کرنے کے ماہرین ہیں۔ اور یہ جو ایریل بمبارڈمنٹ آف سیٹلمنٹس ہے، سویلین سیٹلمنٹس اور بستیوں کے اوپر، یہ ٹیکٹک ہمارے بڑے ابو تایا ابو برطانوی تاج نے پرفیکٹ کی تھی، اور اسپیسیفکلی یہ ونسٹن چرچل کی آسپیسز کے انڈر ہوئی تھی، جن کو ہم یہاں چاٹتے چومتے اور پوجتے ہیں، جنہوں نے ہندوستان میں تو ایک فیمن کروایا ہی کروایا، لیکن جرمنی میں بھی معصوم شہریوں کو اپنا ہدف بنایا، بیکاز جرمن آرمی کو ہرانا اتنا آسان نہیں تھا، بلکہ ان کے سامنے شکست خوردہ تھے یہ سارے کے سارے۔ تو یہ بڑی کیئرفل اور کیلکولیٹڈ گیم ہے۔ یہ حماس کے لیے بھی سوال پوچھا جاتا تھا غزہ کے اندر کہ آپ کو پتہ نہیں ہے کہ یہ آپ کے معصوم شہری مار دیں گے، یا ایران سے بھی سوال پوچھا جاتا ہے کہ آپ کو پتہ نہیں ہے کہ یہ معصوم شہری مارتے ہیں۔ تو وجہ یہ ہے کہ ان سے مقابلہ کرنا پڑے گا، کیونکہ یہ معصوم شہری مارتے ہیں۔ یہ بات آپ لوگ کو سمجھ نہیں آ رہی ہے، ہمارے مذہبی طبقات میں، ہمارے علماء کو، ہمارے واعظین کو سمجھ نہیں آ رہی۔ یہ مجبوری ہے جن ممالک کی، کہ جو ممالک ابھی رننگ میں تھے۔ ایک تو وہ ممالک ہیں نا سعودی، پاکستان وغیرہ، جن کو وار اینڈ ٹیرر کے زمانے میں چٹک کے زمین سے دے مارا امریکہ نے۔ ہم تو 20 ایک سال سے آپ سمجھیں کہ بس ایسے کہ ہمارا کوئی نام نہ لے لے، کہیں ہمارا ذکر نہ آ جائے، لیکن جو ملک اس کے اندر ابھر رہے تھے، خاص طور پہ ایران، جو ان 20 سال کے ویکیوم کے اندر یقیناً امریکہ کی مدد کے ساتھ عراق اور افغانستان کے ذریعے انہوں نے اپنا پھیلاؤ بڑھایا، ہر جگہ چھوٹے چھوٹے اپنے پروکسیاں اور اپنی چھوٹی چھوٹی فوجیں کھڑی کیں، سعودی عربیہ میں پریشر ڈالا، پاکستان پہ ڈالا، کہیں کہ ادھر بدماشی کی وغیرہ وغیرہ۔ اب کرتے کرتے جب انہوں نے اتنے پار پھیلا لیے تھے، تو اب ان کو لڑنا ہی پڑے گا ان سے، ان کے ساتھ نیگوشیٹ کر کے نکلنے کا راستہ کوئی نہیں ہے۔ اور ایران کی بار بار نیگوشیٹ کرنا ہی یہ سب سے بڑی غلطی تھی۔ لاسٹ جو عمان سے انٹرویو آیا تھا ان کے ایمبیسڈر کا، اس نے یہ واضح کیا تھا کہ یہ ایون 0% انرچمنٹ پہ مان چکے ہوئے تھے نیوکلیئر فیسلٹیز، ایون بلو 20%، ایون بلو میڈیکل گریڈ انرچمنٹ۔ تو حقیقت یہ ہے کہ کوئی لیول آف نیگوسیشن نہیں قبول کی جائے گی۔ اور اب ایسے لگتا ہے کہ ایران کی مینجمنٹ جو ہے اب اس پیج پہ آئی ہے، کیونکہ وہ ڈی سینٹرلائز ہو گئی ہے میری ذاتی رائے کے اندر۔ اب IRGC کے جہاں جہاں کمانڈو اور کمانڈر بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں، ان کو جو ٹارگٹ ملے ہوئے ہیں، وہ ان ہدف کو ٹکا ٹکا کے مار رہے ہیں۔ اب اس سب کے اندر 3-4 سینیریوز بنتے ہیں۔ ایک، ایران کیا ٹوٹل وار میں انگیج کرنے کی کوشش کر رہا ہے؟ کچھ گلف ٹارگٹس کو ہٹ کرنے کے بعد گلف والوں نے سوال پوچھا کہ یار آپ کا ہدف تو امریکی ایئر بیس ہی ہونی چاہیے، یا کوئی ملٹری ٹارگٹ ہونی چاہیے، صرف اسرائیل ہونا چاہیے، اس کے بیونڈ کے ایمبٹ کی کیوں جا رہے ہیں آپ؟ یہاں پر بھی جسٹیفیکیشن اور بحث مباحثہ مل جاتا ہے۔ اب اس کے بیونڈ جب موو کرتے ہیں ترکیے پہ یا آذربائیجان پہ جو پرپورٹڈ حملے ہیں، اس کے بارے میں بھی پوری ڈیبیٹ اور آرگیومنٹ دی جاتی ہے۔ اور میرے خیال میں 1 of 4 سینیریوز ہے۔ یا نمبر 1، ایران ہیوبرس میں آ چکا ہوا ہے، بالکل بفر چکا ہوا ہے، اور اس کو لگتا ہے کہ وہ سب سے مقابلہ کر لے گا ٹوٹل وار میں، موت دکھا کے مغربی دنیا کو وہ بخار پہ راضی کروا لے گا ان کو۔ یہ ممکنات میں مجھے لگتا نہیں ہے، البتہ ہر چیز آن دا ٹیبل ہوتی ہے، ایٹ دی اینڈ آف دا ڈے یو نیور نو۔ دوسرا جو زیادہ لائکلی لگتا ہے مجھے سینیریو کہ ایران کی لیڈرشپ کیونکہ بہت زیادہ اسیسنیٹ ہو گئی ہے بڑے پیمانے کے اوپر، تو جو مڈل لیول مینجمنٹ لیڈرشپ ہے، جن کو ٹاسکس اور ٹارگیٹس ملے ہوئے ہیں، وہ اپنے اون اکارڈ پہ آپریٹ کر رہے ہیں، اور ریٹرو ایکٹیولی ان کو پھر وارننگ آتی ہے تو وہ رکتے ہیں۔ یعنی جس طرح ترکی کو ٹارگیٹ کرنا، یا آذربائیجان کے وہ ملٹری ایئرپورٹ پہ جا کے وہ ڈرون گرانا، اور یہ ایک پوٹینشیل پاسبلٹی ہے، تو پھر ان کو پل بیک کیا جاتا ہے، پھر آفیشیل ڈپلومیٹک لیول میں معافیاں مانگی جاتی ہیں، ایون سچی یا جھوٹی یہ کہی جاتی ہے کہ ہم نے تو حملہ کیا ہی نہیں وغیرہ وغیرہ۔ اس میں 3 پرومیننٹ مثالیں ہیں، ایک اریمکو کی فیسلٹی سعودی عربیہ میں، ایک ترکی کے اوپر جو نیٹو نے انٹرسیپٹ کیا میسائل اٹیک، اور ایک تیسرا جو ڈرون اٹیک ایک فیئرلی لو ییلڈ قسم کا ایک ویک قسم کا اٹیک آذربائیجان کے ایک ملٹری سلیش سویلین ایئرپورٹ کے اوپر. ایک طرف یہ پوری فہرست ہوگی ان چیزوں کی. تیسری آپشن یہ ہے کہ یہ اسرائیل کی طرف سے فال فلیگ کیے جا رہے ہیں. فال فلیگ آپریشنز کافی واضح ہیں, کافی سپیڈ سے ہو جاتے ہیں فاگ آف وار کے اندر. میری ذاتی رائے یہ ہے کہ سعودی عربیہ والا حملہ سب سے قریب ہے فالس فلیگ کے, مجھے سب سے انبلیویبل لگتا ہے, اور اسپیشلی بیکاز ایرانی رجیم نے ڈپلومیٹک کیبل کے تھرو ڈائریکٹلی کمیونیکیٹ بھی کیا اپنے کاؤنٹر پارٹ کے ساتھ سعودی عربیہ میں کہ یہ ہم نے نہیں کیا, اور اس بات کو قبولا گیا, اور سعودی عربیہ نے اس کے بعد اپنی ایئر اسپیس اور اپنی اس کو استعمال نہیں ہونے دیا اس کے خلاف. ایون اب یو اے نے ڈکلیئر کر دیا کہ ہماری ایئر اسپیسز کو اب استعمال نہیں کیا جائے گا. اور چوتھے لیول پہ یہ ہے کہ آذربائیجان, ترکی یا عرب ممالک کے اندر ایسی ایک خواہش شامل ہے, ان میں سے کسی بھی ملک یا ساروں کو جمع کر لیں, کہ ایسا ایک فالس فلیگ ان کی طرف سے یا دشمن کی طرف سے کر دیا جائے تاکہ وہ ایران کے ساتھ اپنے سکور سیٹل کر لیں. یہ بھی ایک بہت آنیسٹ رائے ہے, ممکنات میں سے ہے. میں اس کے اوپر وہ نہیں کہتا کہ ایسے ہے یا ویسے ہے, لیکن حقیقت کیا ہے کہ ترکی کی خواہش یہ ہے یا آذربائیجان کی خواہش یہ ہے کہ جو اتلا حصہ ہے ایران کا اس کو کاٹ کے لے جائیں, اور جو ٹرک بیلٹ ہے ایران کی, کیونکہ ترکمان لوگ ہیں, جس طرح آذری بھی ترکمان لوگ ہیں, حالانکہ بلد تشیع ہیں, لیکن ان کا کلچرل جیسے ویلیوز زیادہ میچ کرتی ہیں, اور ملٹری اور فارن پالیسی ڈاکٹرن میچ کرتی ہے ٹرکی کے ساتھ, کہ ترکی ان انٹرپٹڈ ایکسیس لے لے کیسپین تک اور سینٹرل ایشین ریاستوں تک, یعنی کرگستان, قازقستان, ازبکستان وغیرہ. تو یہ تجارتی اعتبار سے ایک نیو آٹمن امپائر کی تشکیل ہونا شروع ہو جائے گی, کہ وہ یہاں سے ملٹری اور ٹریڈ روٹس بنا سکتا ہے آل دا وے ٹو دا میڈیٹرینین, جہاں پہ ترکی خود موجود ہے. اب اس بات کے اندر اس کے برعکس دیکھا جائے تو آرمینیا اور آذربائیجان کی لڑائی میں جہاں پاکستان اور ترکی آذربائیجان کے ساتھ تھے, تو ایران جو ہے وہ آرمینیا اور ہندوستان اس کے ساتھ ہمراہ کھڑے ہوئے تھے. تو یہ بات نوٹ کری جانی چاہیے. تو کہ پاکستان کے انٹرسٹ کیا ہیں, آذربائیجان کے انٹرسٹ کیا ہیں. ہمارا جو سب سے قریبی علاقہ میرے خیال میں پورے خطے کے اندر ہے, چین کے بعد وہ آذربائیجان ہے, وہ ہماری ملٹری ٹیکنالوجیز پرچیز کرتا ہے, ہمارے لیے ایک اور بیک ڈور ہے مغربی دنیا کے اندر وغیرہ وغیرہ. تو یہ سارے اسٹریٹجک انٹرسٹ آن دا بورڈ ہوتے ہیں جب اس طرح کے معاملات ہو رہے ہوتے ہیں. ہمارے جذبات ہوتے ہیں کہ ہم اس کو پینٹ کرنا چاہ رہے ہوتے ہیں ایز گڈ ورسز ایول, ایز رائٹ ورسز رانگ, بٹ تاریخ انسانی ایسی ہے انفارچونیٹلی کہ ہر وقت جو ہے ایک کولڈ کیلکولس چل رہا ہوتا ہے اسٹیٹ کرافٹ کا. نہ پہلے ریاستیں آئیڈیلسٹ ہوا کرتی تھیں, نہ آج کے دور میں آئیڈیلسٹ ہوتی ہیں. بذات خود میں ایک فرد کی حیثیت سے آئیڈیلزم اپنا مینٹین کرتا ہوں کہ میری خواہش ہے کہ اسرائیل کی شکست ہو اس کے اندر. میری خواہش ہے کہ امریکہ جو ہے وہ زمین بوس ہو کے بالکل وہ معافی مانگتا ہوا یہاں سے بھاگ جائے دل دم دبا کے. لیکن حقیقت یہ لگتی ہے کہ شاید اسرائیل کے اندر اور امریکہ کے اندر ایک خواہش ہے ٹو ایگزٹ دس ریجن, یعنی امریکہ اس ریجن کو ایگزٹ کرے اور ایک بڑی ساری آگ جو جروسلم سے نکلے اور پورے خطے کے اندر پھیل جائے وہ لگا دے, تاکہ اس خطے کو آگ لگی رہے. اور سینٹرل اور ویسٹرن یورپ کو تو ماشاء اللہ وہ آگ لگا ہی بیٹھا, تاکہ چین اور روس کا معاملہ ادھر ہی ٹھپ ہو جائے. اور وہ ایک ابھی جو نئی پیٹر ہیگزٹ صاحب کی تقریر آئی ہے وہ بھی آپ دیکھ سکتے ہیں, اگر انسرٹ کرتے ہیں بڑی مہربانی ہوگی. وہ بڑے واضح الفاظ میں کہہ رہے ہیں کہ ساؤتھ امریکہ اور گرین لینڈ والا معاملہ اب ہم نے سمیٹنا ہے اس کو جلدی جلدی. اور یہ باتیں اور رومرز بھی آ رہی ہیں کہ ایک تھرڈ ٹرم کے لیے ڈونلڈ ٹرمپ کو ایمرجنسی وار ایکٹ کے تحت ایک مستقل پریزیڈنٹ بنا دیا جائے, اور پریکٹیکلی کانسٹیٹیوشن میں جگری پوگری کر کے اس کو سسپینڈ کر دیا جائے امریکن کانسٹیٹیوشن کو. یہ ممکنات میں سے ہے. اس بات کو بالکل ایمرجنسی وار ایکٹس کو پڑھیے گا امریکہ کے, بالکل بھی سرپرائز مت ہوئیے گا کہ یہ بالکل ممکنات میں سے آن دا کارڈز یہ ایک معاملہ ہے, کیونکہ امریکہ اب اپنی فائنل سٹیج میں جا رہا ہے. وہ فل امپیریل پاور بننا چاہتا ہے دوبارہ, اور اس کو گین کرنے کے لیے ایک رائے یہ ہے کہ دیکھیں امریکہ کے پاس شیل نہیں ہے, امریکہ کے پاس اور آرڈننس نہیں ہے, وہ کیسے یہ لڑائی لڑ سکتا ہے, یہ ایک رائے ہے. اور امریکہ صرف ہیوبرس میں اپنا دوڑی جا رہا ہے, اندر آ رہا ہے میدان کے اندر. اچھی رائے ہے, مثبت رائے ہے, میں اتفاق کرتا ہوں. امریکہ کی نفرت میں اور تنقید میں میرے خیال میں بڑا واضح ہوں اور ہمیشہ رہوں, بٹ ایٹ دی سیم ٹائم یو ہیو ٹو گیو دا ڈیول از ڈیو. امریکہ بہت خطرناک اپوننٹ ہے, اٹ از این ایڈورسری ان لائک اینی ادر. اور میرے خیال میں وہ اس وقت سرغنہ ہے ابلیس لعین کا خود اس وقت دنیا کے اندر. تو میرے خیال میں ابلیس اتنا ہلکا پتہ نہیں کھیلنے والا, تو اس کو آپ ہلکا مت لیجیے گا. وہ بہت خطرناک ملک ہے اور اس کے پاس بہت زیادہ ایک اٹ ہیز 7 ways to Sunday ٹو میس ود یو. اس کے بعد بہت طریقے ہیں آپ سے پنگے کرنے کے لیے اور مسئلے کرنے کے لیے. اس سب میں جیسے ایک اندرونی خواہش بھی ہے کہ ایران, یہ بات ہے کہ یہودیوں کے اندر واضح ہے ان کی ریٹرک سے کہ ان کے اندر ایک اندرونی خواہش ہے کہ ایران اور دو ایکسیس جو ہیں, ایک طرف سنی ورلڈ اور یورپ کا جو ایکسس ہے, اور ایک جو ادر پارٹس آف یورپین ورلڈ اور شیعہ ورلڈ کہہ لیں اس کو, یا ہماری دنیا میں سے, بٹ جو دو میجر ایکسس ہیں یوریشیا کے اندر, ان ایکسس کے درمیان اگر لڑائی ہو جائے, یعنی ہمارے سارے مخالفین یہودیوں کے اگر آپس میں لڑ پڑیں تو کیسا, یعنی کتنا اچھا ہو کہ گلف اسٹیٹ جو ہیں وہ کود پڑیں اور ایران سے لڑنا شروع کر دیں, اور آذربائیجان اور ارمینیا جو ہے وہ آپس میں لڑ پڑیں اور ایران کے معاملے کو لے کے, اینڈ سو آن اینڈ سو فورتھ اینڈ سو آن اینڈ سو فورتھ. اور اس کی ایک جھلک آپ نے پاکستان افغانستان کی شکل میں دیکھ بھی لی ہے کہ جو افغانستان کو برگلا کے ہندوستان نے ایک پراکسی بنا کے اس کو ہمارے سر پہ مسلط کیا ہوا تھا کہ وہ آئے دن یا دہشت گردی کر رہے تھے، حتیٰ کہ ہمیں مجبوری سے ان کے ساتھ ایک لڑائی میں انگیج کرنا پڑا، جو بڑی کوئنسیڈنٹلی ٹائم تو نہیں ہے میری ذاتی رائے میں، ایک ریزن ہمیں اس ٹائم پہ پھنسایا گیا ہے اس انگیجڈ پروٹریکٹڈ کانفلکٹ کے اندر، از بیکاز یہ ایران معاملہ ہونے جا رہا تھا. سو اگر ریجنلی ہم سارے آپس میں لڑ پڑیں تو ایران کے لیے، اسرائیل کے لیے آئیڈیل ہوگا یہ سارا ماحول. دیکھیں یہ سب کا لڑنے کا آپس میں، اور جو وسائل کی جو جنگ آپ نے دیکھا کہ پاکستان کے اندر بھی بات ہو رہی ہے کہ ہم شاید اسکولوں کالجوں کو ٹیمپررلی فرام ہوم کر دیں تاکہ فیول وغیرہ نہ ضائع ہوئے، ایکسیس نہ استعمال ہوئے. تو اس زمین میں آپ یہ دیکھیے گا پہلے LNG ڈپینڈنسی پوری دنیا میں جا کے کریٹ کی امریکہ نے.
Skip this video if the starving kids in Gaza don't bother you. Right now, thousands of kids.
امریکہ نے جا کے کریٹ کی نا. امریکہ نے کہا کہ میری شپنگ لینز جنگ عظیم دوم کے بعد میں بتاتا ہوں کیا سب نے کرنا ہے، میرے سے LNG لو، میرے سے لیکوڈ پیٹرولیم لو، میرے سے گیس لو، میرے سے یہ لو، میرے سے وہ لو. میں یہ سارا سامان اپنے سمندری راستوں سے پہنچاؤں گا جو سویز کنال کے کرائسس کو ریزالو کرتے ہوئے میں نے دنیا پہ پا لی ہیں، اور برطانوی تاج اپنے ابا جان سے میں نے وراثت میں اسے میں چھین کے لے آیا. ٹھیک، پوری دنیا میں ویسٹرن یورپ کو ڈپینڈنٹ بنایا LNG کے، گلف سٹیٹس کی پوری اکانومی کو چلایا کہ وہ پیسہ امریکہ کھینچتا ہے لیوریج کر کے، وہ گلف میں جاتا ہے، گلف سے وہ امریکہ کے اندر واپس آ جاتا ہے. یعنی ایک سائیکل ہے، امریکہ بوروئنگ کرتا ہے اور امریکہ لینڈنگ کرتا ہے، اور وہ کرتا ہے گلف پیسے اٹھاتا ہے وہ LNG اور گیس اور پٹرول کے نام پہ، اور پھر سارے پیسے وہ ری انویسٹ کر دیتا ہے امریکہ کے اندر، اس کی پراپرٹیاں، اس کے بزنسز. سب سے زیادہ سب سے بڑھ کے سلیکون ویلی کے اندر پریکٹیکلی ایوری ادر اسٹارٹ اپ جس کا کوئی سر پیر نہیں بنتا، اس کا انویسٹر آپ کو UAE، سعودی یا قطر میں ملے گا. یہ پورا گلوبل آرڈر امریکہ نے کریٹ کیا LNG ڈپینڈنس کا، آئل ڈپینڈنس کا. جب یہ آرڈر کریٹ ہو گیا، امریکہ نے پھر اب اس کے اندر کیا کیا کہ ایک ایک کر کے جا کے ان کو نقصان پہنچا. سب سے پہلے امریکہ نے کیا کیا، روس یوکرین کی جنگ چھیڑ دی. روس مین سپلائی سورس ہے جرمن اور یورپین جنرلی انڈسٹریل بیس کا، ایون حتیٰ کہ ان کے شہروں میں ان کے گھروں کو گرم رکھنے کے لیے LNG لازمی چاہیے ہوتی ہے ان کو. تو سب سے پہلے اس جنگ کے اندر امریکہ نے کیا کیا، اس نے نارڈ اسٹریم پائپ لائن جو سستی LNG مہیا کر رہی تھی یورپ کو، جرمنی کے وایا، اس کو جا کے پھاڑ دیا. آج تک اکنالج بھی نہیں کیا. اور ایسے ہی یرغمالی ہیں یورپ امریکہ کے سامنے، وہ ایک دفعہ ایڑی بھی نہ رگڑ سکے کہ مالک صاحب وہ گیس کہاں سے لائیں گے. اسی طرح گلف ممالک کی پوری روزی روٹی، حتیٰ کہ سارا کھانا اسٹریٹ آف ہارموز سے گزر کے آتا ہے، ان کو ٹوٹلی ڈپینڈنٹ بنایا اس تجارت کے اوپر، اس LNG کی تجارت کے اوپر. ان کا سارا پیسہ اپنے ملک کے اندر کھینچ لیا اور کہا کہ تمہیں ایئر ڈیفینس کی ضرورت ہی نہیں ہے، تمہیں تو کسی فوج کی ضرورت ہی نہیں ہے، تم میری رایا ہو، تم میری چھتر چھایا کے انڈر ہو. اور ان کو لاسٹ ایئر اسی ٹائم انہوں نے اکتریوں سے معاہدہ کیا کہ ہم تو تمہارے دفاع چھتر چھایا ہم دیں گے، اور یہ خاک انہوں نے ان کو دی. اور اب ان کو بھی ابینڈن کر کے اسرائیل کے سامنے نرم چارہ بنا کے چھوڑنے لگا امریکہ. تو امریکہ بہادر سے وہی والی بات ہے ہنری کسنجر کی کہ ہماری دشمنی سے بدتر ہماری دوستی. تو یہ دوستی جس نے نبھائی ہے، جرمنی ہو، UK ہو، سعودی عربیہ ہو، قطر ہو، کویت ہو، بحرین ہو، حتیٰ کہ ایون ایران ہو، یہ دوستی بھاری پڑی ہے. جی بالکل، آپ کہیں گے ایران کیسا دوست امریکہ کا، وہ تو کہتے شیطان بزرگ. تو یہ بات واضح ہو جائے کہ CIA کی بڑی واضح اوپن ڈکلیئرڈ بیک چینل کمیونیکیشنز آج موجود ہیں، جہاں آیت اللہ خمینی کے ساتھ وہ ڈے 1 سے ان کے پیرس کے ایگزائل سے لے کر حفے میں ایکچولی کمنگ بیک ٹو ایران ان کی بیک چینل کمیونیکیشنز جاری تھی. میں یہ نہیں کہہ رہا کہ وہ کوئی ایجنٹ تھے یا وہ کوئی فراڈ تھے، وہ واقعی مذہبی پیشوا تھے اپنے ملک کے، لیکن تعلقات امریکہ کے ساتھ بحال وہ بھی رکھا کرتے تھے. حتیٰ کہ عراق اور ایران کی لڑائی کے اندر، یا ایران کانٹرا اسکینڈل کو اگر آپ دیکھ لیں جس کے اندر BCCI اور پاکستان بھی انوالو تھا ایک لیول پہ، کوئی بھی اس طرح کا پرانا اسکینڈل اٹھا کے دیکھ لیں، چاہے خمینی کا دور ہو چاہے خامنہئی کا دور ہو، تو امریکہ بہادر سے کوئی نہ کوئی دوستی تعلقات، سفارشات وہ ضرور پیش کیا کرتے تھے. اور نہیں تو اور آپ ایران کے مختلف صدروں کی یا پرائم منسٹروں کی تقریریں UN کے اندر یا وار آن ٹیرر کے حق میں آپ خود دیکھ سکتے ہیں. یہ میں نہیں کہہ رہا، یہ وہ کہہ رہے ہیں. تو امریکہ بہادر ایٹ دی اینڈ آف دا ڈے اسکروز پیپل اوور، اور وہیں سے اسکرو کرتا ہے جہاں سے انہوں نے گیم شروع کی ہوتی ہے. تو گھما کے اگر آپ گلف اسٹیٹس کو دیکھیں تو پیٹرو ڈالر ان کی بنیادی حقیقت ہے، ان کی رزون دی ایتھک ہے، وہ جس وجہ سے ایگزسٹ کرتے ہیں، اور وہیں سے ان کو آج وہ اسکرو کر رہا ہے. اسی اسٹریٹ آف ہارموز سے جو فخر ہے پرشیا کا، اسٹریٹ آف ہارموز، وہیں سے اس کو آج وہ اسکرو کر رہا ہے. جو ایران نے عراق میں اور سیریا میں اور لبنان میں وار آن ٹیرر کے ٹائم پہ ایکسپینشن کی، اسی کی بنیاد پہ آج امریکہ اس کو اسکرو کر رہا ہے. ٹھیک ہے جی. اور اسی طرح یورپین اسٹیٹس کا جو یورو زون ہے ان کا جو یورپین کول اینڈ گیس کمیشن تھا جس کے تحت وہ دنیا پہ راج کرتے تھے اور غریب ممالک کے وسائل لوٹا کرتے تھے، امریکہ کے 2IC بن کے آج اسی بنیاد پہ ان کو وہ سوئیاں چبا رہا ہے، ان کو اسکرو کر رہا ہے۔ اس ضمن میں صرف اور صرف یہ کہنا چاہوں گا کہ پاکستان کو سوچنا چاہیے کہ کہاں کہاں سے ہم نے دوستیاں نبھائی ہوئی امریکہ سے اور کہاں کہاں سے وہ ہمیں اسکرو کرنا چاہتا ہے۔ ایک میرے خیال میں آج بڑی واضح مثال ہے افغانستان کی کہ جہاں پہ ہم نے افغان لوگوں کی پاکستان کے دفاع کے لیے، اور امریکہ کی خوشنودی بھی اس میں شامل تھی، اس میں کوئی شک نہیں ہے، میں اس کو ڈینائی نہیں کرتا، ہم نے افغانستان کے معاملے کو 45-50 سال پرسو کیا اور آج لگتا ہی ہے کہ امریکہ بہادر اپنے 2IC نئے 2IC ہندوستان کے ذریعے ہمیں وہاں سے اسکرو کرنا چاہ رہا ہے۔ اسی طرح اب خطے کے اندر جب ایران کی باری آ چکی تو ترکی اور پاکستان کی باری بہت دور نہیں۔ اس ضمن میں وہی بات کہنا چاہوں گا، ضیاء الحق صاحب نے کہی تھی کہ فریڈم جو ہے وہ آزادی جو ہے وہ ہر قوم کی اٹس دا موسٹ پریشیس پوزیشن، اس کو پانے کے لیے جو کچھ ہم نے کھویا ہے، جو ہم نے قربانیاں دی ہیں، اس کو مد نظر رکھتے ہوئے اب ہمارے جاتے ہوئے میری یہی درخواست ہے تمام ہمارے حکمرانوں سے، ہمارے لیڈران سے اور ہماری مینجمنٹ اور عوام سے بھی کہ اب ہمیں منظم ہو کے قوم بننے کی ضرورت ہے اور اس کے لیے جو اقدام لینے کی ضرورت ہے وہ لیے جانے چاہیے، کیونکہ یہ اب آخری کچھ مرحلات ہیں، ایک ہر قوم کو موقع ملے گا۔ پاکستان 80 سال کے قریب ہے، کوئی بھی ریپبلک، کوئی بھی ریاست 80 سال سے زیادہ لاسٹ نہیں کرتی جب تک کہ وہ نئی شکل نہ اختیار کرے، وہ کوئی نیا رخ نہ اپنا وہ بنائے۔ کیا ہمارا رخ یہ ہے کہ پاکستان اور افغانستان کو یونائٹ کرنا بائی فورس، بائی ہوک اور بائی کروک ایون؟ اللہ جانے، اللہ کرے یہی ہو۔ ڈاکٹر سرار صاحب کی پریڈکشن ہوا کرتی تھی، بڑے بزرگوں کی یہاں ایک خواہش ہوتی تھی ہندوستان میں کہ سندھو کا اور افغانستان کا خطہ جو ہے یہ انڈس والا اور یہ یونائٹ ہو جائے، اور حقیقت یہ ہے کہ یہی پھر کور بنتی ہے مسلمان اسٹرینگتھ کی ہندوستان میں، بیکاز یہ ان انٹرپٹیڈ بن جاتا ہے نا سینٹرل ایشیا تک۔ تو اس سب کو پانے کے لیے ہمیں اپنی لیڈرشپ کو بحال کرنا ہے، عمران خان ہوں، کوئی اور قیدی ہوں، ان کو بحال کریں، سویلین ریپرزنٹیشن کو ناپید نہ کر دیں، بالکل اس کو ان ایکسیپٹیبل نہ کر دیں، لوگوں کی رائے، لوگوں کی خواہشات، اس کا وہ کرنا چاہیے۔ جب تک لوگ اسٹیٹ کے پیچھے نہیں کھڑے ہوں گے تو یہ بڑی جنگیں نہیں لڑی جا سکتی۔ آگے مرحلے میں بڑی لڑائیاں ہی ہیں، ہماری کوروں کی اماؤنٹس بڑھانے کی ضرورت ہے، چاہے ویسٹرن بارڈر کو سیکیور کرنا ہو، چاہے ایسٹرن بارڈر کو سیکیور کرنا ہو، اور اسی طرح میرے خیال میں بار بار یہ بات میں ہی کی لڑائی سے کہہ رہا ہوں، سویلین ملیشیا جو ہر فورٹ نائٹ میں پریکٹس کرے، مشقیں کرے، ڈرون اور لائٹ آرمس کے ساتھ، اسمال آرمس کے ساتھ، اس میں بلو 50 کی آپ گنجائش دے دیں۔ ہم جاب کرنے والے، بزنس کرنے والے لوگوں کو بھی گنجائش دیں، وہ کوارٹر منتھ میں ہر فورٹ نائٹ میں آ کے ورزش کریں، جیسے کہ آپ نے گارا ہے وہ، یا وہ وہ جو لیپ ہے جو ہمارے سیسا پلائی فوج کی دیوار کے درمیان چنائی کرنے کے لیے، کہ جہاں جہاں کوئی گیپ آ جائے بنائیں۔ اور ہمیں اپنے سب سے پہلے 2 چیزوں کو فگر آؤٹ کرنی ہے، انرجی انڈیپینڈنس، IPP سے جان چھڑوانی ہے، اور دوسرا انڈسٹریل بیس یعنی فائنینشیل آزادی۔ یہ دونوں چیزیں ہمیں اپنی ایلیٹ سے فرینک کانورسیشن کرنے کی ضرورت ہے۔ ہم ڈیٹ میں کیوں ڈوبے ہوئے ہیں؟ ہمیں ڈیٹ کی کوئی ضرورت نہیں ہے۔ ہم نے یہ فیک اکانومی بنائی ہوئی ہے، ریئل اسٹیٹ اور اسٹاک مارکیٹ کی اور کدھر کی۔ ہم ایکچوئل کھانا اور چیزیں بنا سکتے ہیں، پوری دنیا میں ایکسپورٹ کرتے ہیں اور کرتے بھی ہیں۔ ہمیں جو حصے ہیں فارملائز کرنے کے۔
This is the most relaxing game in 2025.
ওকে, এখন সেকেন্ড পার্টে যাই আমরা। প্রথম অংশে আমান ভাইয়ের পাকিস্তানি ইয়ন পডকাস্টে চাইলে রেগুলার বেসে ফলো করতে পারো, খুবই সুন্দরভাবে আসলে বিস্তারিত অনেক আলোচনা করে, এবং পাকিস্তানের যারা আসলে আলোচনা করে জিও পলিটিক্স নিয়ে আমার কাছে বেশি রিয়েলিজমের সাথে আসলে এক্সপ্লেন করতে পারে, রাদার দেন তুমি বাংলাদেশি কোনো অ্যানালিস্ট বা যারা আসলে কনজিউম করে ওই ভিত্তিতে আসলে বলে। এর কারণ হলো অ্যাট দ্য এন্ড অফ দ্য ডে মনে রাখবা যে যা উইটনেস করে তার জন্য ওই জিনিসটাকে আসলে এক্সপ্লেন করা তত বেশি সুটেবল লাগে। দিন শেষে বাংলাদেশ রোহিঙ্গা ইস্যুতে আমরা যেভাবে আসলে অ্যাক্ট করছি এটা আসলে খুবই শরমজনক, লজ্জাজনক। সো আমরা যখন জিও পলিটিক্স নিয়ে আসলে কথা বলি, কেন যেন আসলে এখানে একটা রিয়েলিজমের ভাইব কম থাকে, এবং ওটা অ্যাকচুয়ালিও সত্য। সো যদি পাকিস্তান যেহেতু তোমার জিও পলিটিক্সে অনেক বড় প্লেয়ার, কম্পারেটিভলি বাংলাদেশের থেকে তো লিটারালি অনেক বেশ বড়ই প্লেয়ার, এবং পাকিস্তানের ইতিহাস অনেক রিচ। আমেরিকা নিজে অ্যাডমিট করে যে পাকিস্তান আমেরিকাকে, সুপার পাওয়ারকে একের অধিকবার এবং বড় ফিল্ডে ডাবল গেম খেলছে, যেরকম ওয়ার অন টেররে আফগানিস্তানের কাছে আসলে গান দিচ্ছে, সো ওই সময় ডাবল গেম খেলছে, দেন সোভিয়েত আমলেও ডাবল গেম খেলছে, এবং বেশ ভালোভাবেই, মানে এমন না যে ছোটোখাটো কোনো ইস্যুতে। তুমি চিন্তা করো, আমেরিকার এগেনস্টে তোমার তালেবান লড়াই করতেছে, তুমি ওইখানে অস্ত্র প্রচার করতেছো। সো পাকিস্তান অনেক বিগ প্লেয়ার কম্পারেটিভলি, তুমি যদি আমাদের কাছে দেখো। সো যদি বাংলাদেশ আসলে কোনো অ্যানালিস্ট আসে, সে পিওরলি শুধু কনজিউমের উপরে আসলে নির্ভর করে। বাট পাকিস্তানের ওই ক্যাপাসিটি আছে, ওই ক্যাপাবিলিটিস আছে যে তারা লিটারেলি ওয়েস্টের স্কলারদের লেভেলে আসলে ডিসকাশন করতে পারবে, এবং তাদের স্টেকও আছে জিও পলিটিক্সে। সো পাকিস্তানিরা যখন আলোচনা করে শুনতেও ভালো লাগে, এবং আমার কাছে ওটা বেশি মেক সেন্স করে। সো সেকেন্ড পার্টে যাই। সেকেন্ড পার্টে আমরা আলোচনা করব আমেরিকার মিলিটারি মেশিন ও নেটো নিয়ে যা চলতেছে ইরান এবং ওভারঅল ইউরোপে এই বিষয়ে। সো শুরু করি।
Hey everyone, welcome to Office Hours. It is day 5 of the U.S.-Israel war with Iran, which I guess is now a regional war. We'll talk a little bit about that today. But hey, Dr. Roy. Hey, Dr. Benefsha. How are you guys doing?
General.
You're here. We're here. Everything is fine.
That was reassuring.
Well, I'm in Texas, so I don't. It's
Again, I want to point out the murder rate in Texas is so high that you are 3 times more likely to be killed during this time period than we are.
Hey, my high school friend James Tallarico just won the primary for the state of Texas.
Yes,
so.
I saw that. Yes.
So excited. Hey, congratulations, James. Or Jimmy. I don't know if anyone still calls you Jimmy. So how are you guys doing? How is what's the vibe there? Are you still listening to explosions and aircraft? Anything changed in the last 48 hours? We took the day off yesterday.
So I feel like this is just me speaking anecdotally because it's not like we're keeping careful track here. But I feel like in the last 48 hours, there have been fewer explosions. I have noticed there's a pattern of there's like I want to say around in the middle of the day there's usually a cluster, and then in the evening we usually get another round. So there's like 2 times a day it feels like, or sometimes maybe it's in the morning there's even a round. So 2 or 3 times a day we get a little cluster of them. So far in all of this we've only heard a drone once, but I will never forget that sound. That was bizarro land.
Yeah, it went.
And it sounded like it just went right over our house. And then, there was this moment where we were like debating, was it a drone for real? And then you hear, and you're like, okay, yeah, it was clearly a drone. But
I cannot relate. We have Walmart drones now, and that's scary enough because they will fly over. They're pretty large too. They sound like small aircraft, and then they'll hover. I guess legally they can't drop down, so they'll hover 100, 200 feet, tether down this package. What looks like an incursion, just some kind of weird assault. It's terrifying, and then you see them all over town now, and it's just like coming down, and then it brings it back up and just like all of these unregulated AI defense targeting and acquisition moves. I'm like, what's going to happen with these Walmart drones?
Yeah.
Is one of those going to become weaponized? Anyway, I feel
later. It's too early. Maybe in 10 years when Skynet finally does go online.
Yes. It feels like it may be less than 10 years, Roy.
That could be. Well, it'll be Trump's 4th term.
He is not looking super healthy right now, so I don't know if he's going to. We'll see. I'm not trying to
take over.
Yeah.
The taller one?
We
the
just
youngest?
had the Supreme Leader's son, Mojtaba Khamenei, be anointed as the next Supreme Leader of Iran. It's hereditary. That's how these
It's not going to be Eric, though.
monarchies work.
I wish it was going to be Eric. He's my favorite.
He seems... He seems sweet. He seems like he has a sweet soul. I don't know.
Yeah,
He does,
He
yeah.
does.
Yeah,
He's
maybe that's
my
why he's
favorite,
left
for
out
sure.
all the time because he's
Of
just
course.
kind of. Oh, poor guy. Eric, if for whatever reason you're watching this, which you're not, hang in there, buddy.
Yeah.
So I've looked at the news. Some leaders are saying that Iran has been crushed, even though they're still attacking other places. Hegseth is saying that we're just getting started. He seems like he's having way too much fun with this, and so there's a lot of contradicting information from leadership, which feels normal, unfortunately. And there's also the obvious escalation of this. I think the French have become more involved. We see deployments, we see talks of more reaction from the region to retaliate against Iran now. So generally, we've had nothing but escalation in the last 48 hours. Do you have any insights into that, or what have you heard from your sources on escalation in the past 48 hours?
So, the escalation is obvious. There's some obvious points. Lebanon, Hezbollah jumped in. So Israel's been attacking Hezbollah. Israel has cut off food delivery to Gaza. I believe that was 2 days ago. 2 days ago, Gaza announced that it has 7 days of food. So Israel is using the opportunity with the world focused on its genocidal war in Iran to continue to genocide Palestinians and Lebanese. The death toll in Lebanon is rising as we speak. Lebanon is Israel's second favorite hunting ground because it's a small state and doesn't have the ability to defend itself. So it's fun to pick on. And then one of the interesting things, of course, is that the drones have reached Cyprus, Iranian missile attacks have reached Cyprus. And so, in a really weird twist, an EU state has now been attacked. And there's talk of what does this mean? And apparently, I haven't double checked this, so I probably shouldn't even say this, but apparently Iran has attacked a site in Turkey. So my understanding is that Turkey has responded by saying we have the right to retaliate, but don't do that. Turkey is a NATO state. Article 5 of the NATO treaty that Trump has destroyed says very clearly that if one NATO member is attacked, all NATO members are automatically at war. For that to happen, the attack state has to announce that it's triggering Article 5. Turkey hasn't done that, so this is not yet a NATO war. But when you think about the strangeness of Iran's tactics of attacking everybody in the region, makes you wonder, are you guys playing with a full deck? If there's one country in the region you don't want to attack, it's definitely Turkey, just because at that point you forced Germany and France and Great Britain into the war. Because, so far, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, which is funny if you're in London, so far, Keir Starmer has been dragging his feet, and he's clearly not interested in jumping to the war. Spain has very clearly want nothing to do with the war, and Trump threw a hissy fit, a little temper tantrum, because he's that guy who takes his ball and says, "I'm not playing with you anymore," and runs off. And he said that we should cut all trade with Spain and completely cut them off. It's just so extreme and stupid. So the really weird thing is if Article 5 does get pulled, Spain is automatically at war because, unlike the United States, I'm sure Spain will honor its treaties and its treaty obligations, even if they don't like this war and they think it's an illegal war. And so at the end of the day, the escalation that we're seeing is really strange. The foreign minister of Qatar got up on the news today, and he announced that Qatar has basically reached its limit and is considering all options in terms of retaliation. And has even indicated that the whole GCC is met, and they're considering this. I don't know what a GCC retaliation would look like, and I'm really hoping it doesn't happen. The last thing we need is for this to continue to escalate France is using its aircraft that are deployed in the UAE to help the UAE shoot down drones. And so France is involved in the defense now, at least of the UAE. I'm unaware of them operating anywhere else, which is interesting because, right, it's really easy to imagine how France could then very quickly get dragged into a further escalation. One of the things, though, that I thought was really disappointing was, here's Trump shredding the NATO treaty, trashing Europeans, calling people piggy, and Keir Starmer, Merz, and Macron just went running to Trump, licking his boots, trying to appease him. And it goes back to this thing of people thinking that they can work with Trump. Like he's a person that you can manipulate. He's a person you can talk to. He's a person you can work with. He is incapable of loyalty. He's incapable of anything but an instantaneous transaction. And once the transaction has happened, he forgets everything that's happened up to that point. So there's no possibility of them actually getting him back into loyalty. And the fact that they don't seem to understand that really shocks me. It makes them look like little children, and they're dealing with a bully on the playground, and they're convinced if they just give him the lunch money this time, he'll love them going forward. Mark Carney has said that regrettably he is going to support this war. So it's really interesting that Mark Carney, who has been like the one NATO leader who has sort of drawn a line in the sand and said Trump has gone too far, is now showing support for the war, but he's making it very clear by throwing in the word regrettable that he doesn't want to. So we are seeing a weird escalation. Germany is now saying that the European Union needs to get a hold of nuclear weapons, and France has basically indicated that it's willing to distribute its nukes now to other European Union states. I think one of the things that'll be really interesting is to see how this unfolds for energy purposes. The European Union is extremely reliant on oil and natural gas that comes from the Persian Gulf. Qatar natural gas. I hate using the term natural gas. It makes it sound like it's okay. It's still gas. Global warming gas that comes from Qatar has become a main source for Germany. Because it used to be Russia, and of course Germany cut its trade deals with Russia and has had to find alternative sources. So the United States, Canada, and Qatar have been largely the replacement for Russia. So this should drive up fuel prices in Europe, and so there's going to be a direct impact on the European economy. And I actually think one of the interesting things that the Trump administration probably took into consideration before they did this, but maybe not, is that this is going to have a direct consequence for China, India, and Europe on a large scale, right? Africa will be hit a little bit less hard, but I think India, China, and Europe are going to definitely be hit with larger energy costs, and that will automatically then force the Europeans to start making decisions, whether they wanted to or not.
So let's jump back to NATO real quick. It sounds like maybe NATO leaders are already starting to prepare in their mind to enter into this conflict. Do you think that's a possibility? And if that does happen, do you think other major powers might join in? I mean, I don't want to. It sounds like that's a big escalation. That's leaning more towards, larger than a regional conflict into something else. But one, do you think that's a possibility? And two, where do you think it would go from that point?
Shopping, working, and relaxing online can attract various digital.
So China is too rational to let this turn into a World War III scenario without something just really bizarre happening. The Chinese are probably thinking, how can we turn this into another Vietnam, another Afghanistan? That's their goal, is to bog the United States down in a stupid war it can't win, and try and humiliate it and cripple its economy. And my fear is that Trump will oblige them, because his ego, right, is going to be his guiding star. It's not morality. It's not saving humanity. It's how can I make the Trump brand better? Russia is bogged down in Ukraine. They're desperately reliant on Iran for drones, and just generally for support, but they don't have the bandwidth to do anything about the United States getting more heavily involved in Iran. So at that point, it'll really just be sort of the Chinese sending supplies to Iran and keeping the Iranians going. And for China, it's not ideological. This is how can we hurt the United States when it makes stupid mistakes, especially because the United States is in this asinine trade war with the Chinese. And it's probably one of the reasons why the United States was keen to do this war, is to disrupt the flow of oil to China, right? First Venezuela, now Iran. Iran and Venezuela were both selling heavily discounted oil to the People's Republic, 50% market price oil. So that was obviously really good for the PRC. And Trump has just targeted those two states. The only one left now is Russia, which obviously nobody can do anything about. So I don't see that happening. And even if it does escalate into a NATO war, I think it'll be mostly symbolic, because there's not going to be any enthusiasm on the part of Norway and Denmark and Iceland to do anything, right? I mean, they'll do what they have to fulfill the treaty, but they're not going to go in there gung-ho. And certainly nobody wants to put boots on the ground. So I don't think that's the risk. I think the risk is at some point somebody makes a miscalculation. I think Iran has been making a series of miscalculations. But we saw it with there's going to be accidents. The question is, are the accidents something we can walk back from? So when Kuwait shot down the three American jets, that was obviously an accident. It's friendly fire. Friendly fire happens in warfare. I'm confused about 3. Like, if it had been 1, that makes sense to me. 3 almost makes it sound like Iran shot them down. The United States doesn't want to admit to it, and they asked Kuwait to take the blame so that it doesn't look like Iran did it. But it could just as easily have been Kuwait that accidentally, using our own systems, our own anti-air systems, shot down our airplanes. Fortunately, nobody was killed, so it's easy to make fun of the situation.
Yeah. So you mentioned miscalculations. What do you think would be like the biggest miscalculations that might actually escalate this into a larger war?
Okay, so as far as mistakes go, there's always mistakes. The question is it something that's easy to walk back from? So during the Syrian civil war, at one point, it was relatively early on, right? The civil war went on for, 12 years? I don't remember exactly at what point, but Turkey managed to shoot down a Russian jet, a Russian fighter jet. And, in that moment, everybody kind of froze, because there was this, oops, a NATO member just shot down a Russian fighter jet operating in Syria. What happens next? And fortunately, Putin is a relatively rational person. I mean, he's obviously also ego-driven and has moments of irrationality, but in that moment, he was calm enough to just sort of chalk it off as friendly fire. Maybe it was neutral fire. It clearly wasn't friendly. And then we walked away from it. But it depends on the leader in charge, right? And it depends on their state of being in that moment. So, like, one of the things that I thought of that was a near miss was I think it was either 1996 or 1997, Norway launched a weather balloon using a US ICBM launched from the US. And the United States embassy sent the Russians a little sticky note to the Russians going, Norway's using an ICBM to launch a weather balloon into the outer atmosphere. We're not attacking you, don't worry. And the Russians lost their little sticky note. And so all of a sudden on their radar, they see an ICBM coming for them. And it's just one. But you got to remember that MIRV, multiple reentry vehicle, that single ICBM has the ability to deploy multiple nukes, and I don't know, 17 or a number similar to that. So what the Russians thought was this was the electromagnetic pulse rocket. So the ICBM would deploy over Russia and then drop the 17 nukes across Russia's 11 time zones, detonating the upper atmosphere to create electromagnetic pulse, neutralizing their ability to counterattack because nothing electric would work. And then the U.S. ambassador would show up with another sticky note explaining, if you don't surrender, we're going to nuke you. And so that's what they thought. So they went upstairs. It's like 3 a.m. They grabbed Boris Yeltsin, who's hung over from drinking all day and on 6 different antipsychotic meds. So who knows how the antipsychotic meds and the alcohol are interacting? And he's standing there in his pajamas, looking at the time, the clock. And they got the big map in the basement of the Kremlin, and it shows this thing coming. And the generals are telling him, you need to press the button. There's obviously no actual button, but it's fun to say. You need to press the button because if you don't, the United States is going to force us to surrender and we lose. And Yeltsin in that moment has to make a decision. Do I do the ultimate act of vengeance and nuke the United States so that we don't lose this stupid whatever? Because it's not the Cold War anymore, right? So I don't even know what it would have been. We don't want to lose the tepid war. And so that's his option, or save humanity and allow Russia to surrender. And he chose save humanity and allow Russia to surrender. And the Russian generals are cussing at him. They're calling him names. They're calling him a coward. And as soon as the clock kind of expires and there's no electromagnetic pulse, he walks over to the little red phone and calls up Bill Clinton. And he's standing there and he's like, Bill, I'm standing here in my pajamas and they're soaked in urine. And I want to know just what the hell was that? And Bill goes, didn't you get the little sticky pad memo? And he's like, what memo? And, if it had been Bill Clinton on the other side, we would all be dead right now. If it had been Ronald Reagan on the other side, we'd all be dead right now. If it had been Donald Trump, we'd all be dead right now. We were just really crazy lucky that Boris Yeltsin cared about humanity and was willing to let the Russians surrender to save us, to save our species. And the New York Times put this on like page 7. Y'all almost all died yesterday. It's okay, though. And then the White House announced that from now on, it would email the Russians to tell them what was happening instead of sending them sticky notes.
I feel like so when something happens at my kids' school, I get a message on the app, I get an email and a text message, and then probably a phone call. So can we not implement this with between world leaders? Let's try and the other day you sent me messages, you sent my wife messages, you sent me emails on 2 different accounts. Let's do the same thing when we launch ICBMs for science, so people don't misinterpret the intent there. Oh wow, okay. So I'm gonna take a step in a different direction here. Benesha, I was reading just a little bit ago that the Iranian people have started to rise up, and IRGC buildings and police stations are being razed to the ground, and so things are happening. So what I heard, I think it was from a Kurdish source, so I don't know how, maybe this is just a Kurdish thing in that region, maybe not so much for the Iranian people as a whole. So let me rephrase the question here. So what is the emotions that you're getting from friends and family in Iran? What's the general feeling? Is this going well? Is this going poorly? Is it somewhere in between?
This Ramadan, while we gather around our tables, families.
Yeah, well, Iran is in an 90-something% blackout. We can't get through. They can't get through to us, except for those who have Starlink and the people who go to those particular houses to upload their videos that they've taken or the messages that they have. So it feels like it's still the honeymoon phase where they are a good portion of the people are, even though they're very scared. I talked to my aunt yesterday morning, could sense that they were very scared. Sometimes they sit by the phone and call for 3-4 hours and they finally get through. So I can just sense the fear. A cousin spoke to her mom. There was also just tension and fear. But generally speaking, they are thankful for the regime operatives being taken out. Was it yesterday? Yes, last night, our time, the news came that the building where the assembly of experts, in Persian is Majlis Khobregan, gathers in Qom has been hit, and that some members of that assembly have died and others have been injured. They were gathering to decide on the next leader. That's one of their tasks. It's like the popes gathering to pick the next pope, that sort of thing. Cardinals gathering to pick the next pope. And, it was taken out. The building was taken out, which makes you think, do you have a death wish? Suicidal? Do you just want to end it all? Like, why would you gather in the same damn building? At least have the meeting somewhere else. Or don't have a meeting, get on a call. Or there's an intranet. I don't know. Or it could point to something that I'll talk in a little bit about, which is the
এখানে কিছু বিষয় আসলে বইলানি সম্ভবত তারা জানে না এই বিষয়টা এবং না জানাটাও স্বাভাবিক। যে বিল্ডিংয়ের কথা আসলে বলতেছে যেখানে আসলে হিট করছে, এখানে যেই তাদের উলামায়ে কাউন্সিলটা ছিল যারা নেক্সট আয়াতুল্লাহকে আসলে সিলেক্ট করে, তারা ওই দিন ওই বিল্ডিংয়ে ছিলই না যেদিন আসলে হিট করছে। এবং যে অনলাইনে মিটিং করার আসলে কথা বলতেছে, মোস্ট প্রবাবলি অনলাইনে মিটিং চলতেছিল, ওই বিল্ডিংয়ে কেউ ছিল না, যেটা পরবর্তী সময় ইরানি সরকার থেকে আসলে জানানো হয়েছে। যারাই আসলে এক্সিস্ট করে তারাই আসলে বলতেছিল যারা ওইখানে আসলে কেউ নাই। তবে স্টিল কয়েকজন কাউন্সিলের ভিতরে সম্ভবত শতাধিকের মতন স্কলার আছে, এবং এর ভিতরে মনে হয় একদম ফিউ মানে যারা আসলে মূল অংশটুকু, মানে কিছু আছে আমি অন্য কোনো সময় আসলে দেখানোর হলে আসলে দেখাবো যে, বাট মোটা কথা হইলো ওই ভবনে ওই দিন কেউ ছিল না। এটা আসলে পরবর্তী সময় তাদের সরকার আসলে কনফার্ম করছে এবং ওই বিল্ডিং আসলে ধ্বংস করছে, যে জিনিস আসলে করা উচিত হয়নি। কারণ অ্যাট দ্য এন্ড অফ দ্য ডে তুমি লিডারশিপকে আসলে এইভাবে রিজিম চেঞ্জ করার চেষ্টা করতেছো, বুঝলাম, বাট সামহাও ইরান আসলে এতটাই দূরবর্তী আসলে প্ল্যান করে রাখছে যে তারা সামহাও একটার পর আরেকটা আসলে নিয়ে আসতে থাকে। তুমি ওই 20-30 জন যতজন আলম ওই দিন আসলে একত্র হওয়ার কথা ছিল, যদি তুমি ওই 30 জনকে শহীদও করতা, স্টিল তারা নেক্সট 30 স্কলার বের করাটা আসলে খুব বেশি টাফ। এবং তুমি অনেকটা এই দিকে আসলে তুমি বুঝতে পারো যে বাংলাদেশে দেখো আলেম আছে অলমোস্ট কত 30-40 লক্ষ আলেম আছে আমাদের ভিতরে। এর ভিতরে টপ যদি আমরা 1000 সিলেক্ট করি এবং 30 জন সিদ্ধান্ত নেওয়ার জন্য কোনো কাউন্সিল তৈরি করি, তাহলে তুমি বুঝতে পারতেছো মানে এটা কিন্তু সাইকেলিংয়ের ভিতরে ঢুকতেছে, যে সামহাও একটার পর আর একটা তোমার শুধু জায়গা ফিল আপ করতেছে। সো লিডারশিপের উপরে আসলে আক্রমণ করা, তার উপরে তারা আইআরজিসি কমান্ডো না যে তারা মিলিটারি ক্যাপাবিলিটি রাখে, তারা জাস্ট লিডার সিলেক্ট করে। হ্যাঁ, এটা সত্য কথা, তাদের ফাতুয়ার ক্যাপাসিটি অনেক বেশি, তারা অনেক মানুষকে আসলে গ্যাদার করাইতে পারবে, যার জন্যই আসলে সম্ভবত আক্রমণ করার চেষ্টা করছে। এবং এখন পর্যন্ত তারা জীবিত আছে, আর মৃত হইলে ইরান স্টেট মিডিয়াগুলো আসলে মাইনা নিত।
They are in Delulu land right now. They are. I think Iran was always known for the Islamic Republic's foreign policy was always known for sort of being foxy. It's like you're playing chess, you're playing the United States, you're buying time, and you extend and you extend until this. Like playing the West. They are no longer doing that. Well, we can talk about that later, but just to wrap this particular point up. So they're scared, but also we're still in the honeymoon phase where they're like, yay, another head of state taken out, woohoo! Like there are videos that are sent where bombs are falling, and they're disturbing to me, to be honest with you, but bombs are falling, and there's like, almost this morning, it felt like a carpet bomb, like do 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 do, and it's like intense fire, and it's like major bombs. And the person taking the video is like, the woman next to him has a different expression, but the man is like, yeah. I'm like, oh God. And the woman's like, okay, enough with the yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
I feel like there's a lot of pent up tension and energy, and then maybe it's just like this cathartic release suddenly of things exploding. So like that adrenaline, that tension is finally broken, and there's something happening at least, not necessarily
something happening at least. Some sort of energy, outside energy coming in to dislodge, to make a change, because from the inside they tried for decades, repeatedly. Like in the last, I'd say 6 years, it's been like every year and a half, 2 years. Then it got less and less. It's been like boom, 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 and nothing. They keep getting mowed down.
So you're talking about these leaders coming together to kind of have this almost religious traditional.
It's a constitutional. It's
okay. So
it's mandated by the Constitution. This is how the next supreme leader is chosen. The Assembly of Experts is beneath the supreme leader. It's a hierarchy, and they're beneath the supreme leader.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just curious, to your point, why would they do something like all gathered together and to become a really sweet target? You know what I'm saying? Like, why are they that rooted in that law that they couldn't, meet, I don't know, in a cave or a bunker?
Yeah. I mean, I have experienced this as a human being. Like you get cornered like an animal, and you feel like you have no other option. You're just gonna, there's so much tension, and you also have a whole ideology that you're sitting on top of. And you're pretty resilient. You belong to these people who've been around for thousands and thousands of years, have outlived the Mongols, they've outlived plagues, all sorts of, just the West, all of it. And, these people are like, we are here for the end times. This is, we're waiting for the Mahdi to appear, very much like Pete Hegseth having his Bible studies during lunchtime in the Department of War, talking about end of times and how this. I heard this in a podcast. He has a retired colonel come. So he comes out and he says, I heard a non-commissioned officer came to this former colonel and said, I was around a bunch of commissioned officers and they were all talking about how this war is moving us towards the end of times.
Oh, yeah.
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 Yeah, so
They're trigger Armageddon. Like this
Trigger Armageddon. Well, how is this different from Ali Larijani, who is basically kind of running stuff right now, and the IRGC heads, the Revolutionary Guard heads, and the Fada'is, the people who are gonna blow themselves up just to keep this regime in place.
Right. So I think there was a report by I think 200 plus service members to the Military Freedom of Religion. I can't remember the name of it. It's a nonprofit, but it's head by this former U.S. Air Force. I think he's a lawyer, but he was then an advisor. But he leads this nonprofit since 2005. And these reports were that there are these officers who were telling their troops. Some of the troops were saying that they had like these creepy grins on their face that Trump was ushering in Jesus' return through Armageddon in Iran, which is terrifying, and also completely untrue. This is religious extremism on the side of America. This is Christian nationalism, which is not Christianity, for anyone who kind of gets those two things confused. It is turning into a cult very quickly. So be cautious. Yeah. But it is interesting to see these kind of things. But you're saying earlier, going back to the Mongols, like Americans, we've only been around for a few hundred years, and only as an official state for less than 300, right? So whereas the Persian Empire, the peoples there have been a civilized nation for millennia. And so there's this deeply rooted identity and history of overcoming these things and persevering. So how?
Yeah, and specifically for this regime, they have been hated, not just by the outside, but from the inside. And so they've developed all sorts of coping mechanisms. So when the Ali Larijani sits there and he sort of is running the show, I saw him 2 days ago for the first time, and he's sitting there. I have just scanning the guy, just looking at him, his posture, his look, his face, the way he's holding himself. He reminded me of someone who had a sort of a rope from the top of his head going through his body, and that rope went to the center of the earth. He was like, come get it, motherfucker. Like that was his energy. And it woke me up. I was like, they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. They have dug their heels in, and they're going to take the people out if they have to. So today I heard that this is just stuff coming out of Iran. I heard a friend tell me that they heard, again, we don't have contact. I can't check any of this. That apparently on television they saw one of the clerics say, when we came to this country in 1979, the population was 41 million. We have no issues leaving this country with the same population. It is now 91 or 92 million. So this is the attitude, and they want everybody to know it.
It's like that Trump speech where he says, some of you are going to die, and I'm really happy to make that sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's three theocracies attacked each other, right? Actually, one theocracy attacked the second theocracy, and the third theocracy felt jealous and jumped in and couldn't wait to also attack the second theocracy.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Actually, I hadn't thought of it that way because, I guess the naive part of my mind, not necessarily not the naive, but the unbelief part, the part that doesn't want to recognize the U.S., at least the state of the United States has shifted over to theocracy. Currently, I don't feel like it'll be there forever, but it's this radical theocracy, which I guess all theocracies tend to be, as we've talked about before. Oh gosh. So yeah, we have this 3 corrupt theocracies. When I say corrupt, I mean the religions that they're supposedly representing have been corrupted, going to war with each other to self-aggrandize. I don't like, it feels like an empty thing that they're trying to do. It doesn't, like, I look back at the what are the objectives here, and none of them are clear besides the destruction of the other.
I was just going to say, they want a LARP. They just want a live action role play, and they have these fantasies about what the perfect world should be. And one set 35 centuries back, one set 20 centuries back, and one set 14 centuries back. And I feel like if you want to LARP this, just do it. Like, get into a LARPing group. You don't have to kill people. I don't understand.
Yeah, we can come back to this. The United States, if you had asked me when Biden was president, what is the goal of the United States in the Middle East, I'd be able to tell you. Today, I'm not sure. As far as Israel, the goal is Greater Israel, and it has been for decades. They keep saying Israel's safety, but I think it goes way beyond that. If they can manage more than Israel's safety, if they can do a land grab, they will do it. And they will do whatever it takes.
They're doing a land grab in Syria right now.
In Syria right now,
We're
exactly.
doing land grab in Gaza.
As far as Iran goes, it's multifaceted. The people in power want to stay in power. That's the obvious thing, right? But more than that, I think just like communists believed that communism was the answer, just like capitalists believe that capitalism is the answer, just like the Christian fundamentalists believe that Jesus is the answer, these folks believe that their kind of Islam is the answer. And it's so warped in with their own egos and power accumulation that it's just become this monster that for a long time was playing the international game, the international politics game well, as far as they were concerned. They were holding everything together. I mean, they were moving towards something that was not sustainable, but they were playing everybody, which is kind of the international game anyway. But now, I don't think they know what Trump is playing. They haven't been able to tell what he's playing. They can't read his hand. They don't know what the solution is. And at this moment, they're like, we're just going to do whatever we think feels right, and let's see what happens. I don't think they have a plan. Yeah.
I mean, it is interesting, like, just thinking about how Iran has responded after the outbreak on Saturday. I mean, thinking of strategy, if I was in their position, I don't think I would be attacking a bunch of other people, inviting them to re-attack me. It just seems like a bad idea. Like, are you trying to cause as much harm to self as possible? I mean, it's like if I went into the woods and a bear attacked me, I'm like, you know what, bear? I'm going to attack all your bear friends, and then it's going to be more bears against me. Like, what? What is happening? So
this comes from a place of, we are the only ones who are fighting Western imperialism and standing up to the West. This has been a badge of honor for the Islamic Republic for decades. Everybody is, look at all these Arab nations. Look at Turkey. Look, they want to become white. They want to join Europe. They're part of NATO. They sell out. They, whatever. It's like everybody they have attacked, they have this view of. Honestly, I don't know what they think about Oman or Qatar. I don't know what's going on there. But Qatar, was maybe a vessel for them to connect to other, they were one of the only friends they had. But they probably looked down on Qatar too because they had a U.S. base. I think this is all part of the ideology, and they have drank their own Kool-Aid. Like, they truly believe, and ideology is really, really potent and powerful. It always has been.
Absolutely. I mean, you just immediately reminded me, I mentioned cult earlier, but a lot of this is kind of that cult ideology mindset. It reminded me of Jonestown, where, Flashpoint happens when, I forget the politician who came to visit, kind of confronted him. Yeah, the senator. Yeah. And then he was like, this is bad, I'm leaving. And he was murdered. And it wasn't just that he was murdered. It's like, now that he's murdered, it's time for all of us to die so that we can, that belief is so strong. It's like, hey, it's time for us to end everything because our reward awaits, and for whatever they believe. Do you think that holds any truth in this situation? Does that ideology, like, if we're going to go down, let's bring everyone down?
I don't know about that. It sounds like that's what they're doing, but martyrdom is a big part of Shia ideology. You martyr yourself for a greater cause, for a just cause. And to the folks who are running Iran, I'll just say it, folks who are running Iran, in that ideology, they are the only ones kind of holding justice up in this world. Like, it's insane if you think about it.
Yeah.
And there are many folks.
But that's what the U.S. believes.
It does.
Yeah, I was about to say, we think
it does.
That's our responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We're the beacon of liberty and
freedom. But that's just how ideology works. That truly is how ideology works. And here's the funny thing. A lot of people, a lot of leftists, me being one of, I am a leftist, but I'm clear about the Iranian situation. But a lot of leftists, brown leftists in the United States, just because I live there and I know of the brown leftists there, believe that Iran is the only nation state that is standing up to the West. And, in some ways it was standing up to the West. It still is standing up to the West. The tragic situation here is that the image that Iran presents to the outside, that image of the hero standing up to injustice and settler colonialism in Palestine and all this stuff, that's not the full picture. That's it. And those folks in the United States don't see what's actually happening inside. And they have done such a good job, the Iranian government has done such a good job of propagandizing this one particular sort of post-colonial narrative they have going for them, and hiding what's happening inside. And they made it all about the hijab of the women. And the Muslims are like, well, what's wrong with hijab? Well, first of all, it's not really about the hijab. It's about repression of all sorts. It's about gunning people down because they don't want you. It's about people coming out to the streets with fists and nothing else and getting shot time after time after time. Not just one, not just two, but thousands. And then the whitewashers in the United States, there's a few organizations and a few people who work over there who whitewash everything that this government does. Again, as a leftist human being who just happens to also be Iranian, I can hold both of these together. I can say that, yes, we need to stand up to settler colonialism and Western imperialism in general. And also, the Iranian government is repressive, it is unjust, it is inhumane. So,
I was just going to jump on and say that this is something that I've also encountered with leftists in the United States, but white leftists who love Putin. And you're like,
oh God.
You realize, first of all, he's announced he's a conservative, so he's clearly not a leftist. And so why would you like him? And I think one of the things that happens to people is we need to have a good guy and a bad guy. Like everything is kind of like Star Wars. There's a dark side of the Force and a light side of the Force, and there's cowboys with a white hat and a cowboy with a black hat, and you just root for the guy with the white hat, and you root against the guy with the black hat, and I think that kind of weird
রমজান জুড়ে শরবত বা জুসের বায়না সবার আগে, আর সেই শরবত ও জুস যদি সুন্দর একটা জগে প্রেজেন্ট না করি তবে জোশ হবে কি করে? তাই জুস রাখতে আমার পছন্দ স্টাইলিশ ও ফুড গ্রেড আরএফএল জুস জগ। আরএফএল জুস জগ, জুস রাখার জোশ জগ।
Need for there to be a hero on the planet has really hurt people's ability to think rationally. Because at the end of the day, the reality is that pretty much every actor is pretty bad. There are some actors that are less bad, but they still do bad things from time to time. And then there are actors that are really evil. And there aren't many good guys on the planet. They're few and far between. They usually rule small states. And it might be their size that makes them the good guy because they don't have the ability to be mean to the other guys. Maybe if they were big states, they would be just as nasty. And so, at the end of the day, I really wish people would stop doing this kind of weird, simplified dualism thing. What's interesting, to piggyback on Banafshah's leftist thing, in Europe, the leftists are all super fiercely for the war in Iran because they want the government overturned. So I was talking to a friend yesterday in Austria on his podcast, and he was complaining because he was like, I don't understand why they can't realize that U.S. imperialism doesn't have the goal of liberating the Iranian people. It's just another expression of U.S. imperialism and the Zionist project. And so, on the one hand, the leftists in the United States are confused about Iran one direction, on the other hand, the Europeans and the leftists are confused in the other direction.
Yeah, I just want to say, the United States liberating the Iranian people or the Israelis liberating the Iranian people, I don't see how that is going to happen. Not just historically, but like just looking at stuff on the ground, unless the Iranian people do what they have done over and over and over again and come out into the streets, which is something that we're waiting to see when that happens.
I also think it's a bizarre idea. Like, to me, it's the equivalent of waiting for Stalin to liberate your country, or waiting for Mussolini to liberate your
that's
country.
what I'm trying to say.
Or waiting for Hitler to liberate your country.
They have reduced the price. They have reduced the cost of going out into the street, right? By taking out all these police stations and Sepah stations and Basij stations. They've maybe brought down the price people have to pay. But unless people come out into the streets, nothing's going to happen, especially because there's no boots on the ground, and we want it that way. We do not want their boots on the ground. Speaking of...
Which brings us
to something, I almost thought about not saying anything about this, but Trump's put it out there. It might be just one of those things that came to his mind and it just came out of his mouth. But apparently he had a conversation. He called the Kurds and the Baluchis and has... I don't know, did he ask them? It's not clear whether they're just kind of talking about the possibility of these heavily armed ethnic minorities in Iran playing the role of boots on the ground instead of American soldiers.
Right.
American or Israeli soldiers.
The Kurdish military has been famous for they're famous for their military prowess. So the United States forces...
And women.
Men and women. So I remember when was it that we abandoned Kurdish forces a few years ago, and military personnel, U.S. military personnel, were furious because these were not just foreign, kind of loose allyship. They knew these people. They had great respect for these soldiers. So it doesn't surprise me at all that we would be tapping into that elite force.
Yeah,
well,
it was in Trump's first term. He pulled out of protecting the Syrian Kurds, which is the adjective. And the reason why that mattered, of course, was because Turkey was literally invading Kurdish-controlled Syria.
Yeah.
And what it did is it forced the Kurds to go running to the Syrian state and say, look, an enemy of an enemy is a friend, so can you help us? And they partnered, but it also meant that the aspirations of an independent Kurdistan was squashed, because in that moment, the Kurds in Syria had to accept that they were just going to be an autonomous region. There was no path to independence.
Yeah.
But I think what's more important, besides the fact that Trump abandoned our allies, like the United States always does. Like, you are really stupid and naive to make an alliance with the United States. Portugal and Great Britain have an alliance that has been in place since the 14th century. Like, make an alliance with the Brits. They'll keep their alliance.
Well,
they're not treacherous little bastards, apparently.
Well,
if you're Portugal.
Okay, if you're Portugal.
But the United States, we think of treaties like we think of toilet paper. It's something you just use real quick and flush down the toilet. In 1991, George Bush Sr. told the Kurds and the Shia, rise up and Iraq will back you. They rose up, and we watched as the Iraqi state slaughtered them. This is our pattern. Trump just earlier this year told the Iranian people, rise up, we'll back you. If one of you is killed, there's going to be a consequence for the Islamic Republic. He watched as 35,000 Iranians were just slaughtered in a 2-day span of time and did nothing, because that is who we are. That's how we operate. That's just our shtick.
I want to mention Trump and Hegseth have said that they're not opposed to boots on the ground. They haven't flat out said no boots on the ground, because they're like, any we'll take any military option. So they're not saying that they're not going to do it, which is not reassuring. I don't think it's the plan, but I don't think boots on the ground has ever been the plan. For so many times in the past where we're just like, yeah, we're going to put boots on the ground. And a decade later, we're like, maybe they shouldn't be here.
I mean, we were in Afghanistan for 20 years. Trump signed the surrender treaty right before he left office. U.S. was supposed to surrender in March of 2020. He thought he was going to get that second term, so he'd be there. By the way, his original plan was to, in the week of 9/11, bring the Taliban to New York City and sign the surrender treaty in New York City. So they talked about the optics of using the 19th anniversary of 9/11 to surrender to the Taliban in New York City. So he surrendered in Qatar. So then Biden becomes president, and he postponed the actual withdrawal until August. Before we were even out of the country, the government we had been propping up for 20 years collapsed. And I just don't get how the United States can't learn this lesson. We lost in Vietnam. We lost in Iraq. We were humiliated in both countries. We were humiliated in Afghanistan. Like, why do we want to keep doing these wars? Iran is so much bigger than Vietnam. It's so much bigger than Iraq. It's so much bigger than Afghanistan. It's an industrialized, developed state that's been preparing for this war for 47 years. The only way this goes down is the Iranian people. It doesn't go down with boots on the ground.
Well, I was going to say that in no other time in history has it been possible to take out with this much precision targets like Israel has been doing. We're what is it, day 4, day 5? What is it? Day 5. So many of the heads of state have been taken out that I don't even recognize these people that are being shown on TV. Like, who is this guy? I've never seen this guy before. Some of the new people, I'm like, who is this? So there's also that. I think this is a different situation that you can literally decapitate the leadership that you're trying to take out so fast. And the other thing is, and I'm saying this because it also worries me because not all the pieces are in place. I am noticing that I feel like I need to be close to this.
I wasn't going to say anything.
I am noticing this. I'm noticing.
Why?
Okay, I won't do that. Okay.
That's fine.
So,
I'm keeping that in there because that's hilarious.
Yeah. Okay, so
this level of precision, we've only seen this in like minor skirmishes, but like a continuous war where we're taking out each new leader.
So this has become quickened. It's become quickened. This decimating the leadership. That gives me hope. That gives me hope that boots on the ground might not even be needed, and that this is going to go fast. And the reason why it's important for it to go fast is because in the 12-day war, we started out with, my sense was that we started out with, drop the bombs, Israel, drop the bombs. And then kill as many of these leaders as you can. This is like the people after decades, not right, having agency, getting out into the streets, but then being killed. And then
At GoDaddy, we know your website is the center of your online business.
Around day 7, 8, I felt a shift in energy. By day 10, it was like, what the hell is this? This is an invading force. They're killing all of us. This, like everybody I was talking to was like, whoa, what's happening? So it was really palpable. So it's good that they have this kind of technology because it can be done fast. What we need at this point is just for a strategy for the people to come out. And that's what I kind of just scenario after scenario sit and think for myself, okay, under what conditions can that happen?
Right.
Yeah.
I think, the strategic strikes, I mean, some of them obviously have taken out leadership, cascading levels of leadership. We've also had, the strike on the school that's killed like 160 girls, which you think that technology is, I'm hoping that was a mistake and not some sort of, you have these things happening. I also am predicting, because we've seen this in the past, that we're not going to put boots on the ground, but we'll put some shoes on the ground. in terms of a training force or logistical support. These aren't soldiers going and fighting, which is always the argument by politicians. We're not putting boots on the ground. We just have people there training someone else. We have advisors and, suppliers and stuff. These aren't, or we send mercenaries or what have you, which is, I think, what we've done in Ukraine, getting foreign volunteers to go over. Do you think that sort of thing will happen?
Well, I mean, my concern is, just for clarity's sake, my position is there should be a Kurdistan and there should be a Baluchistan. I have no problem with people doing the right to self-determination, and I think that's a good thing. Having said that, I really don't want Iran to just simply break up in this moment. There needs to be a peaceful transition towards statehood, not a violent armed uprising in this particular moment. And the reason I'm saying that is because I don't think it'll be a clean event. We saw that actually with the Kurds during the ISIL uprising, when ISIL captured literally half of Iraq. Right, they were just outside of Baghdad, and they were in the process of surrounding Baghdad. Obama finally intervened and began strategically bombing. And the Iranian military literally invaded Iraq and was directly fighting ISIL. And then finally, U.S. forces started to arrive because, Obama had already withdrawn us. And the U.S. forces were then stuck working with Iranian forces to drive ISIL out. But the Kurds grabbed a bunch of territory. And they made it clear that they weren't giving it back. They were going to hold on to it. And then they declared their independence, and Iraq then used that as an excuse to attack them and take the territory they took that wasn't Kurdistan. The reason I'm mentioning this is that kind of messy, we got it, so we're going to keep it, is exactly the kind of thing that we don't need to have happen. And my fear is that Iran is going to be broken up by the United States and Israel. But that's the goal. And that's why they want to bring in the Kurds and the Baluchis. I don't think it's because they really have good intentions. What I want to see is the Iranian people, whether they're Persians or Kurds or Turks or Arabs or Baluchis, work together to overthrow the state. And then maybe, autonomous regions, and then a peaceful transition to something, a confederacy or something that works, but doesn't result in more global chaos. Like, the last thing the world needs is a bunch of little breakaway rump states. It will not make the world better. It will not create more stability.
Yeah, unfortunately, this particular issue of ethnic minorities is something that there's no good solution for it. In all the groups that I have looked at, the diasporic groups who are looking for a 100-day transition, that created documents, and then what to do the first year, what to do the first 3 years, all these documents and all these plans from different groups, think tank types have been created. What almost all of them have in common is maintaining the integrity of Iran and not giving the ethnic minorities their own land and autonomy. So this is why it's worrisome, because even though the ethnic minorities are split, some aren't gung-ho about they're not secessionists, and others are. And so there's no telling what's going to happen if the boots on the ground are actually ethnic minorities. So that just creates chaos. Even if I decide not to even have a position about that just brings an element of violence into the picture and a bunch of unknowns. Whereas at this moment, we all kind of have to think about how to bring everybody together, like Roy said. But, the thing that I wanted to talk about is there's a mention on The Rest is Politics. It's a podcast I really like. And they were mentioning an alternative system, which I don't think is a possibility here because you'll see why. But, the examples we have right now of U.S. intervention is Iraq and Afghanistan, and absolute disasters in so many ways. But there's another example, and that is Libya. So during let me say it, Roy.
Another absolute disaster.
It was an absolute disaster.
Catastrophe.
It was a catastrophe, but there's a difference here for the Iranian example. So what happened there was the Arab Spring happens. Gaddafi tries to kill the dissent that sort of bubbles up into the streets in Libya. And Obama decides, okay, we're going to start doing airstrikes, takes Gaddafi out. And then what happens is the boots on the ground are sent, but they are not US, they are UN forces. Well, that's not going to happen, obviously, with Trump. But the reason why it becomes chaotic and it goes to hell is because there was no after plan.
Yeah, it was just an assassination.
It was an assassination, and that's it. So in this particular case,
I was a little involved in Operation Odyssey Dawn, so I am familiar with the UN
Really?
no-fly
Okay.
zone implementation. So it was, we were watching the a civil war breakout, and we wanted to support, because Gaddafi was doing the same thing that we were seeing in Iran, where he was just killing his own people. Because the Arab Spring was happening, and Gaddafi was like, "Yeah, let me send my air force in and start strafing civilians, and just using the military force." Like, it was awful. And we saw this kind of split between Tripoli and Benghazi, and we saw the forces loyal to Gaddafi kind of destroying. And then we started seeing, once we implemented the no-fly zone, it started going the other way. We saw rebels taking control of Air Force bases and, attacking. And I was like, but then after that, it was like, all right, you guys do your own thing.
But that's not the only time we've done that. We did that with Afghanistan's war against the Soviet Union. We sent Afghanistan all this money. We set up CIA training camps. We gave them equipment, and we helped them defeat the Soviet Union. And then we completely abandoned the Afghan people. We didn't build a single school. We didn't help them repair a single road. We didn't help them build a single hospital. We just walked away. And the Afghan people, of course, felt they had just been used as a pawn in this stupid Cold War chess match with the Soviet Union, and that there was no relationship built with the United States, because the United States operates as a purely transactional entity. It doesn't have the concept of loyalty. Trump has just brought that to the surface. We've been like this for decades, since our founding. And so in that moment, the Afghan people were like, oh my God, we're on our own. We didn't have a friend. We didn't have an ally. And one of the consequences was it made them hate our guts. And we saw the result of that, right? And it also radicalized them. And it's one of the reasons why so many people ended up backing the Taliban. Because, right, Afghanistan then plunges into a bloody civil war, in part because of our negligence. And the Taliban won the civil war. This is how we operate. I talked to a member in a government, one of the GCC states. I won't mention which one. And no, it doesn't have to be UAE for those of you who are going, oh, it was UAE. It's one of the six. That's all I'm going to say. And I asked the person, what did you learn from that Libya event? Because there was some support from the GCC for the operation that NATO was also doing. And the person said to me, never to do that again. That was a huge mistake. And I think the huge mistake was there is no after plan. Mm-hmm. We're just gonna wing it. We'll just figure it out as we go. And that is completely insane. In World War II, we had a plan for what we're going to do with Japan and Germany on the other side. And I guess in the case of Japan and Germany is white, so you want to protect them because they're white people. In the case of Japan, you're thinking they're a super industrialized power. They're now fourth in the world. They were third place for the longest time. But Germany just passed Japan. They used to be second place for the longest time.
This makes me think of this made-up analogy I'm just coming up with right now. Like, someone goes in to rob a bank. The bank robber shoots up the place. A lot of people are injured. The cops come in. They take out the bank robber, and then they go, problem solved, and they just leave. Yeah. And there's a bunch of injured people. It's still chaos, and they're just left to figure out how to survive at that point. It seems just a completely incomplete, incoherent plan. Like, let's go in there, strike, and then you guys take care of yourselves. Which is strange. I don't like. Go ahead.
But the analogy falls apart just a little bit because the customers are also armed, and there's just enough bandages for like 10% of them, and so they turn on each other and start shooting each other because the cops left.
Yeah.
So see, but here's the dichotomy. We're kind of. I'm going to say this and then I have to leave. But we are at the same time saying we don't want boots on the ground because we don't trust these two nation states, United States and Israel, and that they're dangerous and they have a history of overstepping and backstabbing and resource extraction and all sorts of terrible things that goes with colonialism. And at the same time, we're saying, well, okay, this could be helpful, or at least I'm saying all this. This could be helpful for the Iranian people. They're taking out the military infrastructure and the repressive arm of the regime, the sort of scaffolding. Okay, so this will help the people come out into the streets. But then there needs to be, you're right, there has to be some sort of regulating agency, power, something that comes in and takes over, especially because all of the safety nets are blown to pieces. So
এই রমজানে টেস্টিং সল্ট মুক্ত চপস্টিক ইনস্ট্যান্ট নুডলসে পাচ্ছেন 10 থেকে 25 টাকা পর্যন্ত ছাড়।
I think at this point we're thinking, okay, what do we do here? And this is why, again, in the last
from this, but it's again, it's this pendulum swing thing. People panic, people overreact. We do this with ideology. We do this with revolutions. We do this with the stock market. If the stock market's going in the right direction, we overreact and we create a bubble. Then we realize there's a bubble and we overreact and we crash the thing. We see AI, we overreact, we overfund it, and we create a tulip surge like the Dutch did. One of the tragedies of our species is we pretend to be rational, but at the end of the day, we are just an irrational bunch of folk. And if we would just admit it, I think our lives would be a little bit better, because we would be operating on the assumption of, I know that guy's just as irrational as I am, so let's see if we can tone down the crazy a little bit. But
yeah,
I
don't think people value humility these days, so that's part of the problem. You were telling a story of the history of Iran as it pertains to oil. You did give a lecture on that a few years ago. I can't remember the year exactly, but I'll link that lecture in the description. You go much more in depth, some really interesting stories and characters on how that unfolded. I think you covered it in like 10 minutes, and so the lecture's 2 hours of classic Roy lecture. So if you're interested in that, the link is in the description. I wanted to bring something up that one of the commenters from our commenters, it's a hard thing to say, one of the viewers who left a comment in our last video, he had the question, which was based off of history repeating itself. As humanity, we tend to, with math and science, our knowledge grows and grows and grows off of those particular subject matters. It's just constantly increasing. Why is that not the case with history?
So the thing in my head is the lich factor. So for those of you who don't play D&D, a lich is an undead wizard who attained a really high level of power. And their goal, the reason they become an undead lich is because they want to become immortal. But everybody knows that when you become a lich, you lose your mind and you become crazy and evil. And yet, every single wizard does it anyway. Not every single wizard does it. Every single wizard who does it anyway, knowing that they're going to lose their mind and become evil, because they think they're the guy who's going to overcome that. So if you walked up to Pete Hogg's death and you said to him, look, this is going to end in a catastrophe of epic proportions. Compare this to Vietnam, compare this to Iraq, compare this to Afghanistan. He's going to go, yeah, but I'm the guy who's going to figure it out this time. And that level of narcissistic arrogance is, I think, one of the main reasons we don't learn from history.
So it is a lack of humility then. So.
It is. I really think the biggest problem with humanity isn't that we're not rational. The biggest problem with humanity is we're arrogant bastards. We're racist, we're sexist, we're classist, and we're arrogant. And everybody thinks, the nationalists, everybody thinks their nation is so cool and so much better than everybody else's nation that somehow they're going to teach the other nation a lesson or how to be better or whatever. And in that nationalistic hubris, there are Americans who really think they're better than Iranians, and that somehow they're going to explain this to them. Okay, when the United States is going to do the second genocidal war against the Iraqi people in 2003 under George Bush Jr., some of my liberal friends were like, this is awful, I can't believe that we're doing this, and they were, really pushing the narrative that this is just a terrible thing and Junior is an idiot. Once the war happened, I actually was told by multiple liberal friends, well, now that the war has happened, I support us because I think we can make Iraq a better place than it was.
Interesting.
And it was like this moment of, where is this coming from? A few minutes ago, you were saying this is a crime against humanity. All of a sudden, you're like, no, yeah, that was a crime against humanity, but it's too late for that now. Now, the United States is so wise and so brilliant. We're going to, with our 200 years of experience, we're going to teach these people who have been doing civilization for 6,000 years how to do this. And it's okay, we've got all this amazing technology, and J. Paul Bremer, who's a super genius, and and we'll just sort them out, and we'll give them democracy. All they need is bullets in their head and bombs on their homes, and they will instantly become democratic. And that kind of nonsensical gibberish hubris, just, I don't even know like what to do with it. Like, oh my God, what? You mean bombing people makes them democratic? Well, then that's how we can fix the United States post-Trump. We'll just bomb the United States back into democracy. The logic of it is so profound and bizarre. I don't even know what to do with it. And I think there's a portion of the population right now, speaking of not learning from history, who do believe that if the United States and Israel just keep bombing Iran, it will become a democracy. And, no, that's not the formula for democracy. Democracy is something really fragile and delicate that needs to be cultivated from within if you're going to pull it off. And it's why there are so few actually truly democratic states on the planet today, right? There are Scandinavia, New Zealand, Australia, Ireland. Is my list done? Costa Rica, maybe, although I think Costa Rica is slipping out of it. Botswana is obviously a good example. I think my list is close to being done. And then there's like the second tier democracies like the Netherlands, Germany, South Korea, that are doing just fine. They're just not quite as democratic as the other states that I listed. But there's not many, like Netherlands, I guess, would be another one in that second tier. Great Britain isn't in that second tier. France isn't in that second tier. Italy isn't in that second. Spain is. Spain would be in that second tier. But,
the U.S. certainly is not.
I don't even think we qualify as democracy anymore. I think we're officially now a hybrid state. So we have some democratic institutions, but we've lost our status, and we're now where Mexico was 30 years ago. Mexico is a democracy now. It's just not second tier. It'd be like third tier.
Yeah, so we're technically an electoral republic, but like we do have elements of democracy, especially on the smaller levels, the county levels, the city levels, or the smaller cities.
Sure. I mean, it's not that the democracy is dead. It's just that Trump has broken the Constitution. He doesn't abide by it. The Supreme Court has made one awful ruling after the other. And then, of course, at the state level, there's so much gerrymandering. I mean, I think 17 states have effectively gotten rid of gerrymandering, but that still leaves 33 states that still have it. And, gerrymandering is exactly vote rigging. There's no difference between Putin stuffing ballots and a Republican or a Republican drawing a district in a way that it determines how that district votes. I mean, it's exactly vote rigging. And, the difference between the United States and Russia is we just do a better job of hiding our corruption. The difference between the United States and Nigeria is that you're racist and you think that black people are more corrupt than white people. They're exactly the same level of corruption, if not the United States is more, because at least the Nigerians are fighting it.
We like to reframe it as fairness somehow. Or again, it's just the oligarchs who are reframing it so that, we get upset at each other when because like gerrymandering is...
In the middle of war, sometimes all it takes is one hot meal, one plate, one smile, one...
It's not so much, it is rigging the system, but it's rigging it so that the people, their votes don't count, no matter what their party affiliation is. They just don't count, which is, kind of why the Civil War started in the first place, because slavery it was becoming an issue that could be voted on, and then they're adding states, and then the states actually lost the ability for their vote to count, so states seceded. Why we haven't done that from gerrymandering? I don't know. Maybe because people have convinced us that it doesn't actually matter and our votes still count. In terms of congressional elections for House of Representatives, for Senate, it's different. For presidential, it's different. Sort of. I don't like our party system. I don't like either party. I don't think parties are good. Anyway, this is a totally different conversation. But it's the oligarchical society versus the rest of us, it seems like. But they're really good at keeping us distracted. And speaking of distractions,
Epstein.
I was gonna ask for a movie request, but thank you. I've been so distracted. I forgot about Jeffrey Epstein. Which, speaking of, Clinton was deposed the other day. I think it totally backfired on Republicans because she, one, showed up, two, answered every question, and they weren't prepared for her to do that.
It's bizarre. What do you think she was going to do?
Listen to the whole thing, and they were kind of scrambling because they're like, we don't actually know what questions to ask you. Well, why are you on this list? What list is that? I don't even know what that is. We don't know what list this is either, but it's your name's on it. Can you tell us why? How am I supposed to answer your question? You just got to print out from the internet. I don't know what this is. Anyway. So that backfired, but it's let's keep that up. But in terms of movie recommendations, anything else? I recommended Dave the other day. Have you been able to watch Dave?
We have not yet watched it. We will though. It's going to be watched.
It's an older political movie, romantic in terms of what a normal good person might do if they suddenly and inexplicably was in charge of everything. So
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. If you want some escapism, that's a good movie to watch right now.
if you want more reality, watch Being There. Yeah,
I
Being
don't
There,
want more reality.
Yeah, so it feels like the Dave movie, but reality instead of like this
Being
utopia.
There?
Being There.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything about it. I hate previews. I just
Sure,
trust
yeah.
me.
Just-
It's
okay.
a fantastic movie, and it really explains the American system. It will explain George Bush Jr. and Donald Trump.
Okay.
And the movie was made, I think, in 1979. Like it was.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh yeah. Like it predicted the future. It was pre-Reagan, if I'm right, which because it also explains Reagan too. But Reagan did run for the primaries in '76, so that if I'm right about the year, they might have still been inspired by Reagan. But in any case, yeah, that's a movie. The other thing I've been thinking about is my favorite ever war movie, which is A Bridge Too Far.
A Bridge Too Far. I haven't seen that one.
Oh, it's fantastic. First of all, it's like the first Hollywood movie where they had the right tanks. So like if you watch Patton, which it was a good movie. The Germans had Patton tanks, and the Americans have Patton tanks, and there's Patton tanks fighting Patton tanks in the Patton movie, and you're like, what the hell's going on? The Patton was a tank that was made in the 1950s, so it's a post-World War tank based on the Tiger tank. Like the design was basically a German. We reverse engineered a German tank to make a better tank for the United States military. So the Patton actually looked a lot like German tanks. It looked nothing like the Sherman. So, if you're watching the movie, it's jarring if you know anything about tanks. In A Bridge Too Far, they actually did the work, the effort to get the right vehicles, and it was revolutionary.
Yeah, that's the for today. আগামীতে ইনশাআল্লাহ দেখা হইতেছে